Greetings to you all, ladies and gentlemen, following the PLP Weekly Live Sunday Chat. I am Muzi Mwarijara Adonai, and I'll be the host for today. Today's discussions are going to be in English. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to add them or drop them in the comments below, or send them to the Twitter handle at PLP or Peace and Love Proclaimers with the hashtag Sunday Chat and tag us for us to see it. Our host today is none other than Natasha Muhoza, who is a member of PLP community and big family. She is a lawyer as a profession, a poetess, and a storyteller. She has participated in a number of PLP events such as Walk to Remember and gatherings around building peace and love among youth between the years of 2010 and 2012, where PLP was still in its juvenile stage as it was gradually growing. Now, we're really glad to have you, Natasha. I know some people might know you here, but just for those who don't know, could you quickly give us an introduction apart from what I said and tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you very, very much for having me. I appreciate it. And it's a good day to get back in touch with the PLP family. Even though I was actively a part of PLP activities for a brief time, it's kind of like once you're PLP, you never stop being. And so it's really good to be back with you guys. So yes, my name is Natasha Muhoza. 28 this year, lawyer, artist, and storyteller generally. That's what I prefer to call myself because I am beyond writing as my main medium of artistic expression. I have done some theater and I have, I'm a lover of all things art, music and such. And that's really my primary space, but I'm also a trained lawyer and partly practicing because I did I've done work in the legal space, but I'm now more in the policy governance space and diplomacy. Okay. I don't know what else is there, but I've done so many things. What gives me what I am passionate about is speaking, I guess, about change, about how to empower young people such as myself and people younger that are up and coming in their spaces to embrace more of their themselves, to find and seek to give to community from their gifts, as my own journey has also been as well. And so I'm always I'm passionate about women's issues and under such. I don't know if I'm sure you can bring more out of me as we go along this conversation.
Yes, sure. Yes, that is amazing to hear. More about your hobbies, listening to music, poetry, and all that. Would you tell us more about the poetry? What is your favorite type of poetry, and who is your favorite poetess or poet?
Hey, that's a good one. First of all, okay, I found myself as a poet. I kind of stumbled upon it, although it was not surprising because ever since I was little, I used to write, I used to enjoy the stage, I used to be a part of all sorts of creative activities. And then, but when I was in high school, that's when I kind of stumbled upon the fact that I am a poet. And that was a slow, gradual process of me finding ways of expressing myself and I began to write. I began to write and to share and sort of naturally, I kind of gravitated towards poetic expression. I did not perform until I began college. around, I think after my first year is when I got the courage to perform, and the rest is history. And when I performed, it was still, still really timid, but somehow it became, it was well received, and I got all the encouragement has kept me going, because with each performance, I have gotten more reason in terms of encouragement to keep going. Now, my favorite, I have so many favorite poets, but Maya Angelou has been, I think, Maya Angelou is a African-American poet whose work really, really, I resonated with, and I grew in some of my most formative years. I was reading some of her work, and that for me shaped a lot of how I view the world of poetry. And so, but I look into like poets like June Jordan, who's another African American poet who I just discovered recently, has become also one of my favorite. But then there's African poets as well. I guess more African storytelling. So for me, the African, I love actually my favorite works of art. I think those who know me know I am a diehard for African literature, African poetry, African music, and so I I draw a lot of my inspiration from African poets. So, but I think in the writing space, I grew up with Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who's a Kenyan writer, and a number of Kenyan writers actually in that space. So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. I'm really amazed that you actually like Maya Angelou. I mean, a lot of people actually do. What would you say is, because you said after reading her work, you were motivated or inspired to write more like her. What would you say is one of the things, because a lot know her backstory, the tragic things that happened to her being raped and all that, but like, did you relate to her stories, or was it just the type of writing or the fear, not feeling afraid to actually tackle such controversial topics, such as just different things she writes about?
Yeah,
I mean, what is it that inspired you?
Yeah, I think it's her style, and her literary style of bringing out the stories that were so deeply personal, but somehow she shared them with the world in a way that was beautiful. And even though some of her story was a bit, was heartbreaking itself, but also she writes from very much a lens of a woman in the world, a woman growing up, a young Black woman growing up in America, but also a Black woman existing in the world. And to that extent, I related to that, to the stories, in the sense that a lot of navigating womanhood was, has its own challenges in the world that we live in today. And I thought Maya Angelou did it very brilliantly to express some of the things that growing into a full strong woman entails. And so I related with those parts of her story, but also especially how she very beautifully and carefully brought out some really deep and powerful stories in such beautiful, simple ways. Some of the works that I think that come up to me was two specific books of hers. One was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and the other is three. Another one is the poem Phenomenal Woman, and the third is another book called Myself, and Mom, or something like that. I'll get the title correctly, but it's about her and her relationship with her mother. And so because I really think along those themes, I really those three works were quite powerful for me.
That's great. That's great. Yes, Maya Angelou's work was really amazing, and I think it brought a lot of change in America, to be specific. Yes. Are you also that kind of aspiring artist who wants to make an impact in the world through your poems and all that, or is it just like for entertainment and just amusement?
Yeah, no, my work for me is my life's work. I have accepted it as a gift of mine, and one that also carries a responsibility for me to speak on important issues, on issues that affect myself and my kind, Black people, young people, Africans, and all that, women, and so I believe that I have that what has come with my gift has been also a responsibility to do this work long term. So for as long as anyone will know me, I will be a poet, and I will be making it will it's also part of my life's work as much as any other thing that I'll be involved with in the future. So it's way beyond entertainment. It's about education. It's about social issues and social justice. It's about leadership. It's about all these other things that are incorporated in my worldview. So yes.
That's great. That's great. Yes. So about that, just tell us more about you. If you were to describe yourself, what are the top five attributes of you? Like, if we say, who
That's a fun
is?
question. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's a
Yes.
fun question. Yeah.
Okay.
Top 5 ways I would describe myself. That's I heard you correctly, yes?
Yes.
I would say adventurous. I think I see myself I see my life as an education. The things that my life has led me to, or the journey I've taken in, either it's through school, through work, through my art. I see it for me as like an education in real time that will never end until I guess I die. And so I would say I'm adventurous in the sense that I'm always seeking the new what's the new thing I'm learning in this moment. So I'm very curious in that sense, and I'm ready to go and involve, be present with whatever the situation I find myself in. So adventurous. Yeah. Active, because I'm a sports lover. I have grown up loving outdoor sports. I've played basketball. I've swum for my schools. Yes, growing up, I actually think I tell myself if I ever get into a grad school, I'll probably try out for the team. So I like to stay active. I hike. I love nature and the outdoors, and I love to stay active. So adventurous and active, and curious. I did hint on that. I'm all for power to the women. Power to the women. And I'm that type of woman as well. I always tell myself well, you could describe me as feminist. I guess I don't try to label myself, but I'm okay with whatever labels come my way. But I am all about speaking of and speaking to the power of women and the women's capabilities, women's access, and women's so for me that I am quite passionate about that, and so I would describe myself as that. What's the fifth? What would be the fifth? I don't know. Fun, I guess. I find myself fun to myself, although some people think I'm.
It's okay. It's okay.
I could be quite geeky and keep to myself in many situations, but I like what goes on in my head. I'm always finding out, trying to learn things, trying to have fun with ideas in my head. So I actually enjoy living in my head. So I think I find myself fun. Yeah.
Introverts. I'm an introvert myself too. So yes, I live in my head too sometimes. Anyways, you mentioned adventure. All right, allow me to ask, if you were to like travel to a distant country for a vacation, what would you pick?
All African countries. I have this dream. I have this dream to travel across Africa one day. So wherever you are in Africa, I want to come to your home and I want to experience what it's like to be on all parts. And also because I'm quite fascinated by what the colonial project did to the African psyche. And so one of those things for me is like people like to travel. I mean, I like to go to like nice and cute places, like, you know, wherever in the world people like to go and enjoy. But I like to travel for to experience the full African experience as much as possible, or at least that's how I view my idea of understanding the continent. And so I'd like to travel everywhere on Africa that I can travel.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's new. If you ask that question to many people, they'd be like Bahamas, Hawaii,
Yeah,
you know, just.
I mean, those places are nice, but they'll always be there. The water will always be blue. That's how I think about it. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. That's nice. All right. Okay. So I have a question. Now, what would you advise for people like, let's say, young poets who wants to start up like talking more about stuff? Because sometimes people get canceled for talking about controversial things and giving their opinion and all that. And social media is just like ready, like it's just an animal, it just comes at them directly. What would you advise them for like a person who's trying to, you know, speak out their minds and who keeps on being pushed by the comments and keep on being discouraged by people just around them?
That's a good question. Learn. One of the things my journey has taught me is to be very, very intentional about learning. And when it comes to, you see, poetry or art, you know, public artistic work is carries responsibility, and it carries it's great even if you're writing for fun and enjoyment. And I love people who write, and I actually like to see poets who write about things that are not heavy and sad and serious. It's amazing. But even then, they need to still know their subject, and they still need to engage in a way that is knowledgeable. So unfortunately, I mean, you do have things that, you know, social media will come with its own its own animal, and that understanding is important in this day and age. But you can't also, I mean, it's just much more helpful for any young poet out there. You may be listening, you may listen later on. I would tell you to spend so much time, you know, reading, informing yourself about the issues that you choose to write about. Because if you choose to write about it, then you are giving yourself, you're placing yourself, you're doing the courageous thing, which is putting yourself out there. But you must be ready then for, you know, all sorts of responses. And sometimes you have no control over responses, but you must be able to at least justify to yourself why you wrote about that topic, why you wanted that message out, how you wanted it out. And, you know, it could even be something light and easy, and that's fine. But you need to be able to justify to yourself. And that confidence comes as you read and learn and listen. And that that constant communication with you and the subject is so important, because that actually also will make you a much better artist, performer, presenter, or poet, or whatever it is you find yourself doing on stage or in the public space. That really gives you that push and that confidence. And even if you encounter a situation where, you know, you kind of made a mistake publicly, even then, you know that the process, first of all, you have to remember that you're learning and growing in the space. And so to be receptive of every lesson that you learn along the way is so important. Is that helps you to adjust yourself and to, you know, to sort of to find yourself and your space. And then when you find your space, I think it's important to be unapologetic also, and to be firm about some of the things that you choose to share in your own art or your own poetry.
Sure.
I say that because you are you. There's only one poet that will be you, and that will bring things out in your own way. And so I say it's important to learn yourself before you learn anything else, and deeper than, you really have that responsibility to learn yourself and your style and what kind of artist you are. And once you take that process, it takes time. It really does take time. But if you're intentional about it, then you understand what your style is, what your voice is, what your key messages are, and then you're able to bring that into art. And then as you learn everything else in the world, then you bring them out. You're able to sort of understand and develop a way of bringing them out to the world, either in fun ways or serious ways or whatever ways that you choose. But the world remains tough, and the public space remains tough. But one thing I know about artists is that artists are really, really courageous people, and poets are gifted to be able to withstand some of these tough spaces and bring out their messages, whatever they may be. And so don't stop, and also don't write or do whatever art you do. Don't do it to please people. Do it because it speaks to that voice in you and that you're expressing. When you show up authentically, then it's not about whether people like you. It's not about the fame. It's not about any of that. It's about you and your love for your work, and also the importance that you place and the value that you give that work. Yeah.
Wow. I like the way you speak about it so passionately. So, it's really, you really get into it and you're motivated.
Yes.
Now, okay,
Yeah.
on the poetry part, I really see you really love what you do. Now, coming back to the law part, would you say you always wanted to be a lawyer, or it's just one of those careers that appeared to be nice and, it was just flashy careers that, felt safe?
It was always, okay, this is how I describe it. I never actually grew up loving and wanting to be a lawyer. No, that was not me.
Yeah.
But I did have quite a bit of influence, legal influence in my life growing up. But I always saw it as, okay, fine, I could do it. But then, so I wasn't those people who were like born to be like, I knew I wanted to do law and then I did it. And no, it came to me, and the universe insisted that I will do law in some ways. And I say that because I had to, at some point I realized, okay, I'm creatively gifted, but there's also these other, line of more traditional professional lines of work that I could also do. So for me, it was a matter of understanding and allowing myself to do the things that I thought I was able to do, and with encouragement of the people who knew me and whatever. And that encouragement of saying, okay, so I know that I'm a good artist, and I know I could write, and I know I love it, but then I could also do law, and I could also be good in that space, to at least to a good degree, and therefore why not make space for it? But I didn't initially actually go to law school. I actually went to college for something else, and I went for economic development. But along the way, like the signs, so many signs showed that, perhaps it would be good to, to go to law school and to get that training as well. And, I made the call based on a lot of soul searching and a lot of, I eventually I sort of found myself that all the doors that opened led me to law school. And I remember making a vow to myself that, much as I'm joining law school, I would not leave the other sides of me behind and forget about them. I was going to be a lawyer and whatever else I was, and an artist. I was going to be a lawyer and whatever else I wanted to be. And thankfully, because it's always been in my mind that I will be whatever I am plus a lawyer, thankfully, it's turning out that way over time. And I'm able to do both my legal work, but also my artistic work and all the other types of work. And I am those people who believe that I could do anything,
You can do both.
literally.
Yeah. That's
So yeah. So the truth is, I didn't, wake up and I didn't always have that burning passion for law, but I had the abilities of law, and I accepted and I received. I got an acceptance that I actually have those abilities, and allowed myself to go and train as a lawyer. And so now I'm a lawyer and these other things. Yes.
That's good. There's a question that just popped up from Joseline. She said,
Sure.
"Essay." It was in Kinyarwanda, but they're asking, how did you manage to do both poetry and law at the same time and be able to manage it?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because those of you who know law school, since niba Joseline uri, umunyamategeko cyangwa uri mu kubyiga, I'm not sure. Ariko, it is tough. But also, one thing I remember telling myself is that if I choke out, or if I ignore my artistic gifts, then I would not be a good lawyer. Because for me to be a good lawyer meant I have to be the best version of myself. And part of myself is an artist and is a poet, a writer, a lover of the creative space. So I had to be true to myself. And so that's how I thought about it. So njyewe uko nabitekereje ni uko ngomba gukora, gukomeza kwandika, gukomeza kuba umusizi, gukora ibyo nkunda kugira ngo mbe umunyamategeko w'ukuri for myself. Like, I just needed to be true. So when I go to law spaces, I actually say I am a lawyer and an artist. And even when I was in law school, I showed up and I, prioritized law school and all the work I had to do, and it's a lot. But every time there was events, they would say, would you want to share a poem? And I showed up and I wrote a poem. Did you, so I showed up as a creative, even in my pursuit of legal education. Does that make sense? I don't know if that, so for me, it's the idea. And I remember telling myself, there are all these, you have to find loopholes. Any small event was an opportunity for me to practice and to keep the artist in me alive. And, there's always student events. The school I went to, it's a school here in Kenya, where we had International Students Week. And I was, I led dancing, getting all the international students together to do artistic things for 1 week. And that was me, you see. And so the idea is that I always told myself, as much as I'm studying law, as much as I'm doing legal work, I also have to make space intentionally in my mind to do art things. But there are times where I had to sacrifice. I had to really, really sacrifice and say, for this amount of time, I will just have to do my schoolwork, because if I don't focus, I would fail. And it was a hard, anyone who knows law school knows it can be quite hard. So the idea is that once you're pursuing a certain thing, it's about my method was prioritizing things. And even now, I can actually, even in my work, sometimes I say, okay, I will have time off or lighter weeks in this season. And in this season, I will be engaged in artistic events. Or when I know it's not possible to include my art in a specific time frame, then I know that, okay, that time is just for being a lawyer, and it's for being, doing, my governance work. And it's just about it takes a little more extra effort, that if you want to be what you want to be, then, you make time, you prioritize, you seek guidance from trusted people. And then those people who really know you, if they truly believe and encourage you, usually they won't say, leave that thing and then do this thing. They usually recognize that you are many things in one, and then they encourage you in how to go about making it happen for yourself. So many people ask me, actually, yonje mu Rwanda, some people say, oh, you used to be a poet. I said, no, I'm still a poet. Changwa, oh, you're a lawyer, or you're now, you're a poet, but now you used to be a lawyer. I said, no, I am still a poet and a lawyer. So it is possible to be all these things. You just have to prioritize constantly and it will work.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like being a lawyer it's like an art piece, you know? It looks attractive from our view, but once you get closer, you see the imperfections and how hard it is.
Yeah. But it's also very
really
doable and very enjoyable. And
really.
we have, yeah, it's easy to have this perception that it's also so, even when I was starting, I said, no, I'm an artist. It's easier for me to just do that. And I didn't want to go to law school because I thought it's going to be so hard and I won't be able to manage it. And then if I do it, then I won't be able to be an artist. But the truth is, it's doable. So please believe in yourself. Like, you can do law, you can do medicine, you can do all those hard courses and still be anything else that you want to be on the, you know, aside from that. Yeah.
I think that's a great lesson to learn, because that's really amazing to be able to chase your dream like that.
Yeah.
It's really amazing despite that. So what do you like most about your job though? Like being a lawyer? Is it the argument part, or because people think the way
well,
you sleep
thankfully, yeah, I when I was doing my legal training, I knew there's some parts of the law that I just realized were not for me. For example, I'm not necessarily inclined to practicing criminal law or being in the, you know, in court settings and whatnot. So I knew that. I love observing it, reading, analyzing it from a distance. And I love it when some of my friends or fellow lawyers who are gifted in those things, in litigation, in being in court representing on the criminal side of things, when I see people who are good at that, I love to see it and I love to follow it. But it's not me. I know that I was more inclined to the corporate side of legal work, business type of contracting and whatnot. And it also can be mundane and hard. And, you know, it requires great detail and understanding, but it's good training for the mind. So I think being a lawyer generally, what I love the most about it is that it teaches you how to think well. And it challenges you consistently, challenges you intellectually and mentally in terms of how you can logically think through complex issues and soak that in and analyze disputes between parties. And that thing is a skill that actually, that is the skill, I think, that is at the heart of what you go to law school to learn. It's about how to analyze society through the lens of, you know, solving disputes of different kinds. It could be criminal, it could be civil, which anything that's not criminal is you know, civil, and it could be commercial, it could be, you know, and there's other, you know, fields that have emerged, like arbitration, which is another, it's not court settlement, but it's sort of, you know, another alternative to a court system. And so I love how it teaches me, or it has taught me, to think and to view the world from a view that it's, you know, the world and issues between people and organizations, countries, are so much more complex, and that there's all these gaps that you have to see and to feel mentally and logically, and how to present arguments and that kind of thing. It teaches your mind, really, that tenacity that we all want. And I think law is good training. I would encourage anybody who feels that they have, you know, that in them, to really pursue it. If you feel that it's something you can do, I think pursue it because of that, not because necessarily you need to be, you know, it's not Harvey Specter or Suits or whatever other show you watch. That's a lie. But it teaches you how to think analytically and how to do some really heavy work with your mind and understand that you can actually do it. You can compress it, you can you can sort through so many complex things in your mind. So yeah.
I love that show, actually. Hey, Suits.
Yeah, but it's a
It's
scam.
like,
So many people who enter law schools realize quickly it's not the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But things aren't the way they seem. Anyways, so guys, we're about to take a short break and we'll be back really soon. So please stay tuned. Don't get off. We'll be back.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, we are back. Okay. Yes, welcome back to the PLP Sunday Live Chat. It happens every 8 to 9. We are back with the second session, and we are here with Natasha. As we were discussing in the past part, we talked about different areas that Natasha is interested in, and we talked about. She told us she is a poet and she is well versed in a lot of poetry, and she really is in the way that she talked about it. She was really into it and she was passionate about it, and it's really it shows you the level of the level of determination that she had during when she was chasing a dream, and she's keep on doing it right now. Now, Natasha, we have a question for you. For a person who has a dream, a certain dream, probably not poetry, but wants to chase it, but sees it as a limitation that it's not really something that can, I can live on, I can do as a living, as in I can do it for a living, like let's say drawing or something like that. It doesn't have a big market in Africa. What can you advise them to do?
I think it's, first of all, just to say it's valid to think about how you would, how you could, whether you can live on a specific art or not. But I would discourage anyone who is true or who loves the work enough from thinking about it in that way early, because then you sabotage yourself before you even explore the possibilities. One thing I do know is that even for me to ever be paid for being on stage, I had to put myself out there and to just do the work because I love it. And then at some point, as you go along, then you make decisions as to whether it's something you can pursue long term or it's something you can pursue on the side as you do something else. I think if you love the work, if you love to draw, if you love to paint, if you love to do this, that art is for you to abandon it because you think or you have you know, you have read the situation and realized you may not be able to live on it. If you abandon that art, then we lose out on the beautiful art that you would create later on.
Definitely.
And the world never gets to you never get to test those waters in the first place, because who knows, you could blow up and you could actually live one day on your art. But I think it would be a disservice to yourself to not allow your art to come out into the world and speak and have the power that it deserves to have, if you think about, you know, whether you can survive on it or not too early in the game. But also at the same time, these are questions you have to ask yourself at some point, because, you know, you get, as you go along in your work or in your artistic work, then yeah, you make choices. You realize that many artists can't live only on their art, but if you keep doing your work and perfecting your craft, perhaps every once in a while you will get good pay for it, or you would get, at least you would get paid enough, and then, you know, to keep the work itself going, to keep the art, you know, for you to keep it. The beauty is that the world is more beautiful with your work in it, and your work deserves to be out there. And so, yes, the truth is also that you may not live on your work for a while. The very few artists actually end up being able to live fully on their work, at least in this part of the world. But it's not impossible, although it's also not inevitable that you will. So the idea at the end of the day should not be about whether you'll survive on the work, but whether you love the work enough to still do it, despite the circumstances. And then you can make decisions as to how much of the work you do, or in what style, or what, you know, how you will couple it with every other thing that you'll do, because no one person actually lives on one thing. I mean, in the end of the day, you do a number of things and you're able to survive. You do, you know, so not everybody will also, you know, some people can live on a salary, some people cannot. Some people will run a business, some people will. At the end of the day, is you have to prioritize as to what do you, are you passionate enough to just keep doing that thing?
No.
Regardless. And once you have made peace with that, and once you have decided that in your heart, when it comes to art especially, then nothing can stop you. You're always doing your art, and then you make choices as to how, then what circumstances around which you will do it. Sometimes you may say, okay, my art will just be this thing I do because I love it. Or at some point you say, I want to monetize, and then you ask people to pay. And then sometimes that you realize that you have to couple that with something else. And I think the idea is that just do the work, love the art enough, and pour your heart into learning and perfecting the craft, that nothing else deters you. Because you can't, it would be sad for you to be deterred from the art just because of the money, which you're never guaranteed anyways, or because, you know, I mean, you never know what the future holds. So just do the work, just do the art. Yeah.
That's great. Now, we're used to this famous quote that the youth are the future. And with that quote comes a problem that I think Rwanda is most likely going to face in the nearby future. The problem is, and I think you're a critical thinker, you could possibly give us a solution to heal this. Most of the youth, as they finish their secondary school, they're looking for opportunities outside, studying outside, abroad countries and all that. And they feel like that's where the life is, you get? That's where the opportunity is, that's where the money is, and that's where the future is. They think they cannot chase their dreams right now here in Rwanda, and they cannot pursue what they want here in Rwanda because they feel like Rwanda does not literally at some point support or has given a lot of, you know, interest in that field in whatever they want. So they find themselves going abroad countries, or just the fact that Rwanda doesn't have a high paying salary they find themselves just going abroad countries and staying there. What would you provide as a solution for them to actually know that, attract them back here and know them that the resources are actually in Africa? They don't have to look for it in abroad countries, and specifically in our country.
I would say, a number of things. I think one of the reasons, I fell deeper in love with Africa when I actually left. And that for me was a big revelation, because when I got to abroad, when I got to the US, which is where I went to the first outside of the continent, I realized being in Western countries, America, Europe, and all that, all those countries, while it's nice and fun and funky, it's not as glamorous as they say it is. Life can be quite tough. And also, if you think about how far up the chain of your career advancement you can get, there's always that limit, because you see these other countries and these parts of the world are already struggling with so many things: racism, classism, and whatnot, and all these ceilings are placed for people. So you may go to these countries, but then what will you become? Will you become the best possible version? Will there be that space for you to become the best possible version of yourself? If you want to be, do something really big in government, will you achieve it there, or will you achieve it in Rwanda? If you want to be something big in like the artistic space, will you blow out and become a Beyonce or a Jay-Z in America, or can that happen on the continent? But also, what is true for you? At your heart of hearts, your story is not told enough. And so you are the one. You and I are the ones charged, or should be, telling this story. And I think the more you realize the more you grow into thinking about Africa, you realize there's so much wealth of knowledge on this continent that it's easy, that we need to wean ourselves off. We need to unshackle our minds from this idea that, life abroad is the best life. It's nice, and the truth is that, yes, there may be, it's seemingly better opportunities for pay and for all that stuff, but an Africa that is ours to call home will always be ours to, that's what we have ultimately. And the more we can think of the more we can put our minds to thinking, how can we make our home more livable, more able to sustain life in a comfortable situation? That's how we bring solutions for our continent. Our continent has been ravaged by so many interests. Americans and people in all these Western countries, powers that be, spend a lot of time in Africa trying to get resources or maintaining control, or all these other things. And I'm so passionate about being part of changing that narrative, that psyche that keeps us colonized. And so while it's okay to travel the world and go as far as possible and get your education and your training, I think it's so important for us to realize that the home in which our children will live in is this one that we are trying to run away from. We can't escape it. And the thing is, the more we make it, the more we reclaim our story and our home, and seek and create opportunities on this continent as we go along, or we seek to be part of that story and that change, that is when now we will truly have left a mark, I think. So it's so important for us to remember that, it may be nice and pretty, but for our parents who, sacrificed so much to send us abroad, I don't think that their dream is to have even like the rest of their ancestry going to be second-class citizens in another part of the world. We want to be first-class citizens in our home, in Rwanda and in any part of Africa. I think I would be happy to be part of, that movement across our continent, because our continent is where it's at, actually. Our continent has the money, has the resources, feeds the world, and we just need to unlock that knowledge and that power to reclaim that for ourselves, rather than going abroad and then we make money and then we enrich other people. What about enriching our own people and ourselves? So I have no problem with the desire to go abroad, but I think let's try to remember that building Rwanda and building Africa and being part of that change is absolutely going to enrich you. Well, it may enrich maybe your children. Maybe for us, we have to do that work of sacrificing and, but I guess that wisdom comes as you go along and you recognize power dynamics in the world.
That's great. That's great. A question from Murenzi Joshua. He's asking, how do you find poetry in Rwanda?
I love it. I like that young poets are becoming more expressive in Rwanda. And there's so much on the scene. When I started, there was a few of us that I think I could really, that like my peers, Malaika Wamahoro, Jiramata, Eric Wanki, a couple of other Kinyarwanda poets, Olivier, and I like that I have connected with a couple of these. But and I like that over the years, poetry has become a beautiful medium of artistic expression in Rwanda. I think there's always room for us to grow it and make it a really beautiful and powerful industry. But for now, I think the confidence and the creativity that is being infused into the poetry scene is actually quite nice to watch. So, yeah.
Yes. That. I mean, I really agree. I really agree. A question from Solange Akaliza.
Yes.
She's saying, we recently saw you with RT, Honorable Patricia Scotland.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth Secretary General. Tell us how it feels to meet her, and how it felt to meet the President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, and what it takes.
Well, I won't tell you that I've arrived, because I met them. I mean, I'm really privileged and humbled to do the work that I'm able to do. I currently work with the Secretary General herself, and across the whole Commonwealth. Our work spans, Rwanda is just, one of the members of the Commonwealth community, and so it was amazing. It's been amazing being able to do, to have that proximity to decision makers in the region, in our Commonwealth, and it's humbling. If I have to put it in one word, it's quite humbling, and it also reminds me of the responsibility that I have as a young person who has been able to work with or alongside some really inspirational leaders in the world. And so meeting the president was absolutely lovely. I mean, of course, I was not leading the meeting, and so I wasn't really like taking charge and having a lot to say. I was learning, and that space and that being able to be in the presence of two great leaders for me, is a learning experience. Because you see, it's easy to say you want to be a leader one day, but when you watch and you sit in a room and observe how conversations are had, you realize there's a big responsibility that awaits us. And so for me, it was the opportunity to learn from some of the leaders that I aspire to be like one day. So, yeah.
That's great. That must have been great. That must have been great.
Yeah.
Yes. I think our last question, second last question. This question comes from Sami Akarizi. He's asking, what pushed you to join PLP?
I think, what was it actually? I had friends who were part of PLP, but also Yeah, the first cohort, Mark and them, you know, so it was just, we knew each other as young people from different schools in Rwanda, and I just observed a number of what my friends were doing at PLP, and they said, you know, you should join us, and I said, okay, let's do this. I was also a student lead. I was quite active in student groups and, you know, sports, leadership and whatnot, and I thought, why not join, you know, a group, a movement of other young Rwandans from across the, you know, the country trying to do work. And I remember a lot of that used to be around, at least much of what I was involved in was around Walk to Remember and genocide commemoration. And for me, it was a space to, you know, engage with other, you know, other young people who were doing something about, you know, recognizing the responsibility the young people of Rwanda have, and being part of that story and being part of that conversation. And so, yeah, I joined PLP because, you know, I had friends who said, you know, you need to be one of us. And I said, why not? And also just doing that work, especially around genocide commemoration, was for me very important to be a part of.
Wow, that is great. That is truly great. Okay, I think we're coming to an end. Yes, thank you very much for attending. Everybody who's here, who's been here since the start of the live, we thank you very much for attending. I hope it was really educational and helpful. And I really hope you also attend the next week's Sunday live chat. It was great having you. Yes, our guests. Yes, it was really great having you, and we had really great conversations.
For any of those who had questions or feel like they want to reach out to me for other, you know, I mean, there's my email. Actually, it's even on my YouTube. I generally tend to go and see what people have responded to. But my email, natashamuhoza28@gmail.com. If you ever want to be in touch for whatever reason that's important, or I guess we can decide that when you write. I'm happy to engage and to answer more questions as they come. Did you hear that? Did you catch what I said?
Sorry, I didn't. We just had a few problem with the internet. We're back.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah, now it's okay. Just getting the camera back on.
Sure, no problem. I just said, you know, those of you who may want to reach out, I'm more than happy to engage and to share more if you have any further questions. And yeah, you could do that through my email, which is on my Instagram at natsjustnats, but also my email, natashamuhoza28@gmail.com. So I'm happy to answer more questions or to just share. Yeah.
Okay. I think the last one. Yes, as we're closing, what advice can you give the youth today? Do you feel, what communication do you have for them before we close?
Okay, I would say there's so many things I would desire for the young people, because, you know, I'm one myself, and, you know, I'm also growing and learning as well in my own process. I think the most important life lesson I have learned on this short journey of mine is seek to know yourself at a very, very deep level, at intentional soul searching and discovering the complexities that make up who you are is a very deep, sometimes lonely, and sometimes tough journey, but one that is worthwhile. It will be the foundation of so much of of how you show up in the world, as an artist, as a lawyer, as an engineer, as a social, you know, activist, or whatever it is that you find yourself being and wanting to do in the world. It's important to go through to always be committed to understanding yourself, understanding and gaining that really, really, really deep knowledge of who you are and what you are about, and your strengths, your weaknesses, you're educating yourself on some of the things that matter, some of the ideas, and that takes work. I just want to say, I think, don't be caught up in the small or short-term trappings of either power or fame or looking good, being liked. As in, try to be focused on some of the important things, which is understanding yourself, being self-aware, and being a very conscious person, because that, I think, will be the most rewarding experience of your life. At least it was for me. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Natasha. Yes, I was Mimuzimwari Jara Denai, and our guest today was Natasha Muhoza. Yes, be blessed. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Well done, Jire. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, and see you hopefully sometime.
Okay, sure.